What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the movie The Order. Here's a quick synopsis. FBI agent Terry Husk is settling down in Idaho when he begins to look into a newly formed white supremacist group known as The Order. The film stars Jude Law, Nicholas Hoult, Ty Sheridan, Journey Smollett, Allison Oliver, Odessa Young, and Mark Maron. Standout performances. What's really interesting to me about an actor that's been relevant for as long as Jude Law is that people have different favorites when it comes to his filmography. Some love the film that made him a star in the first place, The Talented Mr. Ripley, where he plays Dickie Greenleaf. He, for that film, was nominated for an Oscar. Many people love his work in the romantic comedy The Holiday, where he turns on the charm. My favorite Jude Law is when he's making strong choices with the performances he's giving. And there's two films that come to mind. Steven Spielberg's Artificial Intelligence, where he plays Gigolo Joe, and Road to Perdition from Sam Mendes, where he plays a cold killer. There's been so many different sides of Jude Law as a performer, and there's something for everyone. It's great to look back at what people deem the classics of Jude Law's career, but I also want to talk about where he is right now as an actor, and currently he's going back and forth between giant tentpole franchises and smaller character-driven films. The franchise work I speak of includes 2018's The Crimes of Grindelwald, where he took the mantle of playing Albus Dumbledore, 2019's Captain Marvel, playing the villainous Jan Rog. In 2022, he again played Dumbledore in Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, 2023's Peter Pan from director David Lowery, where Law plays the infamous Captain Hook, and this year he played a key role in the Disney Plus Star Wars series Skeleton Crew. The smaller films, more director-driven, include Brady Corbet's Vox Lux, which sees Law reunite with his closer co-star Natalie Portman, where he plays a music manager. I just rewatched this film. He's unhinged, and it's incredible. You also have 2020's The Nest from Sean Durkin, which paired him with Carrie Coon. In it, Law plays an unhappy businessman. Jude Law's first film of 2024 was Firebrand with Alicia Vikander, where he plays Henry VIII, a film that I thought was visually appealing, but a little too bland for my taste, and that gets us to The Order, where he played Terry Husk. I would deem this the most intense performance of his career. He is playing someone who's supposed to be slowing down, but he's a thrill seeker. In a way, yes, he's someone in it for justice, but the job is also an addiction that is impacting every aspect of his life. Law aging into roles like this is awesome. It's hard to believe the guy from Cold Mountain could play this guy, but here we are, and he's brilliant in The Order. Law's next film is the star-studded Eden, with Sydney Sweeney, Ana de Armas, Vanessa Kirby, and Daniel Bruhl from director Ron Howard. We are all going to look back and say Nicholas Hoult had a special 2024 with Clint Eastwood's Juror Number 2, Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, and Justin Kurzel's The Order, where he plays the leader of The Order, Bob Matthews. And this movie, to me, perfectly showcases all of Hoult's abilities as an actor. He's playing someone who is convincing people to follow him and is actively hiding his own selfish nature. There's one scene that really stood out to me where he goes to an Aryan Nation meeting, which he completely takes over. This is Hoult's second film with director Justin Kurzel. The first was True History of the Kelly Gang, where he's also playing a terrible person in search of power. I do wonder if 2024 is finally going to make Nicholas Hoult a household name. He's an actor people know when they see. He's been in a lot of things, but he's a central figure in 3 very interesting movies that a lot of people are talking about right now, and all 3 performances are impressively different. I say all that, but how people feel about Hoult will ultimately likely come down to his portrayal of Lex Luthor in James Gunn's Superman movie. Look what happened to Jesse Eisenberg. people still haven't forgiven him for what I think is a perfectly fine performance. Ty Sheridan is someone who received a lot of praise as a young actor in Terrence Malick's Tree of Life and Jeff Nichols' Mud. Critics turned on him when he starred in mainstream movies, Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One, and 2 X-Men films as Cyclops in X-Men Apocalypse and X-Men Dark Phoenix. Not beloved movies, to say the least. The actor, in my opinion, has really bounced back these last few films with performances in Paul Schrader's The Card Counter with Oscar Isaac and George Clooney's The Tender Bar with Ben Affleck, both in 2021. In the order, he plays Jamie, the cop who first informs Terry about the mysterious bank robbers he believes are secretly part of a hate group. He's playing a normal guy with a wife and kid who got swept up in the case. The dynamic between him and Jude Law in this film is one of the best things about this movie. And finally, podcaster and comedian Marc Maron has become a very good actor in recent years, and in this film, it's built to his skill set as he plays a radio host, Alan Berg, who speaks his mind on all topics, who is tragically murdered by the Order for his outspoken thoughts. If you, like me, have long been a listener to Maron's podcast, WTF, you are going to see the meta aspect of this movie. Tell me if you've heard this story before. Director Justin Kurzel was highly praised for his adaptation of Macbeth with Michael Fassbender and Marion Cotillard, and then made a massive studio movie, Assassin's Creed, starring the same 2 actors, and it was widely panned. Kurzel has more than come back to form with his last 3 films. Nitram, with a leading performance from Caleb Landry Jones that was highly praised, True History of the Kelly Gang, which has a great cast, and The Order, which is a very different kind of movie than his past work. For one, it's plot-driven. His other movies are very loose when it comes to moving the story forward. Kurzel has very much become a director that I follow because he does 2 things very well. The first is he makes very good-looking movies. I just rewatched True History of the Kelly Gang, and I love the look of that film. And the other thing that he does is he gets great performances from great actors. This movie, The Order, although very serious and based on true events, does have broad appeal because it does weirdly harken back to other classic films. You can't help but see the dynamic between Laws Husk and Hoult Matthews and not think about the movie Heat, mostly because the 2 characters have separate storylines that you know are headed towards a collision course, not to mention the bank robbery scenes, which also had me thinking about Point Break and The Dark Knight. The Order is one of those rare films that's set in the past that is trying to say something about the world we are living in right now. Like, let's talk about a hate group like The Order. Because we live in a world with the internet, we know about these groups, but when you watch a movie like this, you realize that these hate groups have been here the entire time, that this kind of dangerous ideology has been around for a very long time. There's another film from 2024 that has a real connection to The Order, and it's Jeff Nichols' The Bike Riders. 2 very different movies, but both are similar in that they are about how groups and organizations can grow into something dangerous and uncontrollable due to individuals and bad leadership. The other thing I believe The Order has in common with The Bike Riders is not enough people have seen the film, and I find it hard to talk about a movie like this in the year 2025 because it wasn't a hit movie and isn't an awards contender, even though it should be. But the reasons I wanted to talk about it is because I heard a lot of praise for it online. I'll watch anything with Jude Law, and it's a super well-made film saying something about today's world. It's a how we got here kind of a movie. There's been a lot of love for Jude Law because of this performance, and a lot of people are saying he should be up for his 3rd Oscar nomination. I mean, the other 2 are The Talented Mr. Ripley and Cold Mountain. I would absolutely love for Jude Law to get his third Oscar nomination for a movie like The Order. I just don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I do, however, feel good about Jude Law getting a future Oscar nomination because it feels like he's building towards something. People loved him in The Nest. Now they're loving him in The Order. It's like what happened with Matthew McConaughey during the McConaissance. We all fell in love with every performance he was giving, so he eventually got an Oscar win for the movie Dallas Buyers Club. And the same thing happened with Colin Farrell. I mean, he went on an unbelievable acting run and finally got an Oscar nomination for The Banshees of Inisherin. I believe doing stellar work is what finally gets an actor recognized after a long time period. Yes, Jude Law has 2 acting nominations. They were both from earlier runs in his career. It's time for us to recognize the work that Jude Law is doing. If he continues to give great performance after great performance, at some point it will become undeniable and he'll get that third Oscar nomination. There are those people who don't even believe that Jude Law gave the best performance in The Order. A lot of people feel strongly about Nicholas Hoult's performance in this movie, and there's a guy who has yet to receive a single Oscar nom, and you wonder what it would take for Nicholas Hoult to get that Oscar nomination. I mean, he was beyond brilliant in George Miller's Mad Max Fury Road and Yorgos Lanthimos' The Favorite. I mean, he should have gotten a Best Supporting Actor nomination, in my opinion, for both of those films. I've heard some people talk about how he should get a nomination for Juror Number 2. I don't think that's going to happen. He's not going to get nominated for Nosferatu, and he isn't going to get nominated for The Order. But like Jude Law, I believe if Nicholas Hoult continues to do great work, eventually he's going to get that long sought after Oscar nom. You usually don't see actors get nominated for playing real life terrible people like Bob Matthews. I mean, for example, Topher Grace was not nominated for his performance in Spike Lee's BlacKkKlansman, where he plays David Duke, yet I thought Topher Grace, like Nicholas Hoult, was brilliant in that role. Even if they don't get Oscar nominations in the near future, Jude Law and Nicholas Hoult are widely regarded as very good to great actors. Justin Kurzel, on the other hand, is a very good director who is not yet thought of on that top tier level. He's not a household name. You really have to be a big movie fan to even know who he is. He hasn't had a hit movie. He was given his chance with Assassin's Creed and it didn't work out. I'm left wondering if this is what his career is going to look like for the rest of it. Is he just going to continue to make these really good, underrated, gritty, intense dramas that not enough people see? Or is one of two things going to happen? A studio is going to give him more money to make a bigger movie, or is one of his films ever going to be recognized as a major Oscar contending film? And here's one of the issues with that. I don't think that could ever happen because he doesn't like to wrap up his movies with the Hollywood happy ending. It's interesting to note that his next project is a television miniseries, The Narrow Road to the Deep North, starring Jacob Elordi and Odessa Young. And with Jacob Elordi in that, you have to imagine that that series is going to get a lot of eyeballs on it. Maybe that will be the project where more people recognize the name Justin Kurzel. Getting back to the movie, one of the most fascinating elements about The Order was how Bob Matthews was getting people to do what he wanted. He was manipulating them, making them believe that they were part of a larger goal, even though it was all for selfish purposes. He was making the people of his group feel like they were a big part of where he wanted to go, and they weren't. He just wanted to be in charge and gain a lot of power. hour. The Order is definitely a movie with a clear hero and villain, but Terry Husk is also a complicated figure. He's having issues in his family life. He's addicted to his job. He's way too intense. He's not really thinking about how his obsession affects other people. There's a great scene in the movie, one of my favorite scenes, where Jude Law's character Husk is confronted by Jamie's wife, who calls him out because she doesn't like the impact that he is having on her husband. It's always interesting to look at a character in a movie and go, yes, he's doing the right things, but is he doing them in the right way? I really do have high hopes that this is a movie that over the years will grow in stature. I think it will be a movie that people will find. It will be one of those, wow, Jude Law is incredible in this movie. Why didn't I see it when it came out? Nicholas Hoult is fantastic as well. Why didn't I see this movie? I hope it becomes one of those films. I'm just someone who wants people to watch good movies, and I think this is definitely a movie worth seeking out. It's a well-known star doing some of the absolute best work of his career. It's also just shocking when you look back at the film and you realize that yes, Jude Law and Nicholas Hoult are not American actors. They are both British, yet man have they mastered their American accents and can play any American role. I mean, you forget that that's Jude Law during some of the moments of this movie, and the same goes for Nicholas Hoult. I was more surprised when Nicholas Hoult was doing his normal accent in Nosferatu than I am when he does an amazing accent in movies like The Order, because I'm so used to him having an American accent in movies. Listen to Jude Law's accent in Vox Lux and then watch this movie as well. I mean, you're going to be blown away by what Jude Law can do with his voice. I'm not only upset because not enough people have seen this movie and I think it's a movie worth seeing, I'm also upset because I don't know what that means for movies like this moving forward, or actors like Jude Law wanting to be in movies like this, because I think there is this idea that maybe somebody like Jude Law does a movie like The Order because he thinks he's going to get a lot of praise and he thinks he's going to get an Oscar nomination, and when that doesn't happen and when the movie's not a hit, how does an actor like Jude Law feel about the movie? I'm sure on one hand he feels great about it, but how many more of The Orders is he going to want to make? And actors down the line, like younger actors, are they going to want to make movies like this if they're underseen? I know a lot of people make fun of this idea that George Clooney once said, which is one for me, one for them. I think that's where movies are headed when it comes to actors and their choices. I think that's what Jude Law is doing. He's making a movie like The Order, and then he's also in a big Star Wars television show. Jude Law definitely wants to be recognized as a good actor, but he also wants to remain relevant, and I really do wonder if you can have both things the way that he's doing it. He's getting away with it because he's Jude Law, but how many actors in the future are going to be able to make these kinds of choices? Look at his co-star in The Order, for example. Nicholas Hoult is getting a lot of praise for his work in Clint Eastwood's Juror Number 2 and The Order. Two movies that I don't know will exist in the next 10 years. Will they be making movies like this anymore? They'll still always make movies like Nosferatu, his other film, because everyone went out and saw Nosferatu. It was a popular movie. It was a hit. It was a horror film. But will they be making movies like Juror Number 2 and The Order? We're just going to have to wait and see. I will always cherish a movie like this, no matter if it's a big hit or not, because I heard a lot of praise for this film and it was even better than I expected. The Jude Law performance was great. The Nicholas Hoult performance was great, and I really did enjoy seeing Ty Sheridan bring it in a movie like this. And for Justin Kurzel, I want him to continue to work with Nicholas Hoult. I think he continues to get some of the best performances out of the actor. I definitely want to see him re-team with Jude as well. He's one of the only few directors capable of making a movie like The Order that is both entertaining and profound. Not to mention informative. Before I heard about this movie, I never heard the name Alan Berg. I never heard about The Order. I think we as human beings should know these kind of real life stories to see how they relate to the world we are living in today. To put it simply, movies like The Order should exist. Thanks for listening to this episode of Pop Culture Spotlight. I'm Cameron McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I highly recommend you check out Justin Kurzel's The Order. Next week on the podcast, I'm talking about Sean Baker's Honora, starring Mickey Madison. So tune into that and please rate, review, and subscribe.